legend has it that gooey butter cake was invented accidentally in St. Louis in the 1930s when a baker made an error while making his coffee cake recipe. Rather than tossing out the result, he cut it into squares and sold it, and a local tradition was born. So I'll show you how to make gooey butter cake. First, proof 1 package of active dry yeast and about 1/4 cup of warm milk. The milk should be no more than 105 degrees. And this is what's going to make this cake rise in the pan. Pan has been buttered and lined with parchment, and the parchment's also been buttered. And you can clip down the excess parchment, which helps you lift out the gooey butter cake when it's done, lift out from the pan. So this is, and these little clips are really great for holding the parchment in place. Now, simple recipe. Cream 1 stick of butter, 8 tablespoons, with 1/4 cup of sugar. There's not much in this cake, but the result is odd and different and gooey. 2 cups of all-purpose flour. We're just gonna mix this a little bit with a teaspoon of salt. These are our dry ingredients. And the butter is getting a nice creamy yellow color. And we're going to add an egg at a time, 2 eggs altogether. Get that nice and light and creamy. And milk, even 1/4 cup of milk makes a softer crust that'll brown more quickly due to the sugar and the butter fat in the milk. Get the eggs well incorporated into the butter and sugar. And now you can just add the flour a little bit at a time on low speed. And this is basically a kind of a rich bread dough, but it would make a very small loaf of bread. You're gonna have the yeast mixture. Proofing yeast in milk creates breads which are richer and have a more velvety texture than those proofed in water. And now just scrape it down and then beat for a minute or 2 just to get a nice elastic dough. And that's it. Press the dough by hand into a 9 by 13-inch glass baking dish. This is the base of the coffee cake. So use a little offset spatula. It doesn't have to be perfect because the finished cake is far from perfect looking. Okay, cover loosely with plastic wrap. Warm spot out of the sun. Let rise for approximately an hour. So after an hour, the dough has almost doubled in bulk. So just keep it covered till you make the topping. Now the topping is what makes the goo. And it's, again, a kind of a peculiar topping. 2 sticks of butter, 1 1/3 cups of granulated sugar. You could add a tablespoon of vanilla, whole tablespoon. 1 egg and 1 egg yolk. And don't forget 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Dip in your cup measure, and it's 1 1/3 cups of flour and 1/4 cup of light corn syrup, and the rest of the flour and the rest of the corn syrup. Corn syrup has the ability to resist crystallization and used here to keep the topping soft and gooey. And there you have your sticky topping. Spread this evenly all over the dough, trying not to deflate what's risen below. Looks good. Make sure your oven is preheated to 350 degrees. This is going to bake for about 20 minutes. Now, this cake is going to rise and fall in waves as it bakes, and it'll have a golden brown top, but it'll still be kind of liquidy in the center when it's finished. So get that right into the oven. Set your timer. Take the gooey butter cake out of the oven as soon as the top becomes a light golden brown. It looks sort of like the surface of Mars. Let it cool and remove the clips. You can lift the whole thing right out of the pan. And you can put it right on a serving platter. And before serving, just dust the top lightly with some confectioner's sugar. Cut it into squares and serve. Crispy on the top, soft on the bottom, gooey in the middle. A very fortuitous accident, don't you think? Enjoy.